go.
Ready to go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Snowy Valleys Council meeting, 18th of May, 2023. I'll ask Councillor Livermore if he'll oppose the acknowledgement of country. Councillor Livermore.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the area that we're in, and in particular, acknowledge their connection with and respect for the land on which we all live and share.
Thank you, Councillor Livermore. I'll now read the opening comments. Live streaming of council meeting. This meeting is being live streamed on council's website to allow the community to follow council debates and decisions. Members of the public participating in the meeting agree to have their images, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded and publicly broadcast. Snowy Valleys Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of the meeting. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be live streamed. Statement of ethical obligations. Councillors are reminded of the oath of affirmation of office they made under section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993 and the obligation under Council's Code of Conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. Use of mobile phones at council meetings. Please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and no recording of voice or images is permitted. In the event of an emergency at a council meeting, please evacuate the building using the nearest exit and follow the instructions given by the warden. Do not use the lift. If participating in the meeting from an alternative venue, please enact the evacuation plan that location requires. We have no apologies or leave of absence or remote attendance at this meeting. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? If not, we'll go to confirmation of the minutes. Item 4, ordinary meeting on the 16th of March. Someone move? Moved by Councillor Thompson. Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Livermore. Any discussions? If not, I'll put the debate. Put the motion. My apologies. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Correspondence and petitions. I don't believe we have any. Is that correct, Mr. General Manager?
That's correct.
Notice of motion. Councillor Armour.
Right. I would hang on when I get to the paper. Yeah. That went quicker than I thought. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, could I just comment? Those minutes were for the 20th of April, not the 16th of March.
My apologies.
So
20th of April. My apologies.
we were.
Councillor Armour.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have put a notice of motion, and since then since I've put it, I've done some more research, and the General Manager's advice is underneath the notice of motion. And what I would like to do, with your permission, is change my motion slightly and put a notice of motion that Council would strictly apply the Code of Meeting Practice clauses 3.33 to 3.38, applying to pre-meeting briefing sessions to ensure matters are debated and determined in the formal meetings. And that number 2, notes be taken of discussions at all workshops.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. Could I speak?
Councillor Ham.
Oh, you speak.
Sorry. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor?
Yeah, I would like to speak to it because it might take a bit of explanation. The reason I've done it is because the public perception out in our community is still that we as councillors seem to be merely rubber stamping the decisions that we make at the actual meetings. And there is a feeling that things are sort of worked out in the workshops, and then there's no debate much, and they have no understanding of how we've reached those decisions. And I think it's important for transparency reasons and for the community's confidence that we allow them to know what we've discussed and how we've derived at the decisions that we've had. As far as taking the notes at discussions at workshops, as a new councillor, I've encountered, and it's more likely my fault than anybody else's, but half the info, wrong info, misunderstood info, and so on. And I need to reflect and often need to go back to check the information. And this can lead to staff feeling uncomfortable because I'm asking questions that they've already probably answered. But I need to know if I'm going to make a proper decision. So to avoid that feeling of being uncomfortable, what was specifically said, I feel that if we have some sort of notes that we can refer back to, we can at least check and agree and make the route a lot easier. So if that's my reasons, sorry.
Thank you, councillor Armour.
If I could
Councillor
just, I think it's a really good motion. Thank you, Hansie. But I'm a really big fan of the council newsletter, and thank you to the council staff that get it together. I find it quick, easy, and attractive to look at. But I just thought it would be good if there was just a little section said what's discussed in council workshops, so they know that someone's come to speak to us, or we went to Lob's Hole or whatever. Just and make it a bit more transparent about what we are discussing.
Very good. Any further comment? Councillor Lara?
I just have a little bit of issue with the wording of it because I think the wording more strictly apply infers that we're not actually adhering to the code of meeting practice. You're either adhering to it or you're not. So I don't think you can be sort of 2/3 the way there. We either are compliant or we're not.
Yeah, councillor. Sorry, Mr. General Manager.
There are parts that there is always going to be some level of subjectivity to. I think what Councillor Armour has clearly identified there and correctly identified is that we probably are starting to veer to where we potentially are not complying with the code. And I think Councillor Armour is suggesting that we need to correct that and make sure that we bring that back online. And I certainly support what's being put up there. And I think it does that very well. It makes it a very clear direction to myself, and it's my role to chair those pre-meeting agendas. So I think that provides a very clear direction as well to what council is seeking.
Mr. Mayor, can I suggest you
Councillor Hayes.
remove the second and third word?
Council apply.
Second and third. Yeah.
I don't have any objection to that.
Yeah,
Mr.
no, that-
Hayes.
Mover and seconder are happy with that?
Yep.
Any further debate?
Seeing as we're having a discussion
Thompson?
on it. I think it's really important. I have to say I was a little surprised in this term of council the way that the pre-meeting review of the agenda was done as going page by page and looking, and it did mean that a lot of what was done was not done in the public eye, and really it's up to us as councillors to read through our business paper and our agendas and all of the attachments prior to the council day, and if we have any queries or concerns we should be able to raise for clarification, but not to actually start having in-depth discussions. So that's in relation to that point. The workshops themselves, at times we get a little carried, or there's a lot of discussion within a workshop, and unless there's at least some form of notes taken, it can be very easy for some really critical points to be missed, and they aren't reflected in the reports that come back to council later for discussion, debate and resolution. So I think to at least have some notes taken within those workshops will be beneficial for councillors and staff. And the pre-meetings really need to be about clarification, not to start actually discussing any of the issues.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll now go
Carried
to,
against, no.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, carried.
councillor
Was
Holmes
against.
and councillor Hayes didn't vote. I was right. Were you against?
do you want to record the people who voted for?
No, this is carried.
Okay, we'll now go to urgent business.
No, 6.2,
I believe you've,
6.2.
sorry, my apologies. 6.2,
Notice of motion.
notice of motion.
With the humour.
Second one, yep.
Me.
Is there a mover?
If I could move it.
Yes, councillor Ham,
And John Larder.
councillor Hyder, seconded. Thank you. You wish
If-
to speak to it?
I'll just briefly that I feel we're at a stage with Snowy Hydro with a little bit of a pause in their operations, that this would be a good time to actually have a review of what's happening up there. And of course, it does directly affect our area with the HumeLink transmission lines coming to this area. So we did meet Brett Redman in his first week as CEO of Transgrid. I have been following what he's doing, and he's very good at talking about the project. So I think it'd be good if he came and addressed council, and maybe the community could hear from the CEO itself. And it would be certainly good to meet the new Minister for Climate Change and Energy Environment, Penny Sharp. And I do note that also our local member, Joe McGurr, is also asking for an inquiry rather than a review. So hopefully we still have a lot of land owners who are not happy with what is going to be happening on their land. And so I think we should be there to support them.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Can I just?
Councillor Hayes.
Just a suggestion, it'd be nice to have David Pocock included in that.
Why not?
Yeah.
Do you wish to,
Amend
is
it.
the mover and seconder happy to have that
We're
included?
happy to do that. Yep.
Very good. Any further discussion?
The name again, please.
David Pocock, Senator.
Senator David.
Senator.
Independent. Senator by
Independent.
ACT.
Spelling.
No further discussion?
Spelling.
Pocock.
Thank you.
If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Senator.
We'll now go to
Thank you.
item 9.1,
No, urgent
Sorry?
business.
urgency motion. Councillor Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, I'm seeking council's approval to actually deal with this as a matter of urgency. I've been contacted by a number of people in the community over the escalating inappropriate behaviours that are happening down at Tumut's youth recreation area. And I'd like to put forward a notice of motion that actually says that council approach police to work together to develop a strategy to address the antisocial and inappropriate behaviours that seem to be escalating at the Tumut recreation area, Fitzroy Street. And the reason I give for it being a matter of urgency is that the behaviours are escalating, and I think if we leave this for another month to deal with it, it's a month that we lose in actually working with our police to address it.
We have a seconder,
That it be dealt with as a
Councillor.
matter of urgency. Thank you.
Councillor Ivel. Wish to move that motion then?
Well, we've got to
Right.
vote whether it's urgent.
That's all right. Yeah. All those in favour? Against? Carried? You wish to move?
I'd like to move the motion that council approach police to work together to develop a strategy to address the antisocial and inappropriate behaviours that seem to be escalating at the Tumut Youth Recreation Area, Fitzroy Street.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Armour? Any debate?
Can I just speak to the
You can
the
speak,
motion?
councillor Thompson.
This has been something that has been an ongoing issue that people have raised concerns of particularly younger children, but now being fearful to go over there because there seems to be a gang mentality that when the younger ones go there, even if they're accompanied by an adult, there's things like they're having their scooters taken, they're being bullied. So the younger ones no longer really want to go there. And what has really prompted this is that somebody contacted me who, as a grandmother, took their 2 young grandchildren down there. And when the person actually asked that these people stop being so aggressive and rude, the person was actually surrounded, intimidated, verbally abused, and it was not even possible for the police to come down at that time because they were busy. And so I think that what's happening is that while we have a facility there, it's now being taken over by a mob mentality of some very inappropriate behaviours. And if we don't act on it now, I think it's only going to get worse.
Any further? Councillor Lara?
Well, I mean, I'm not against the motion, but I'm just wondering why the police haven't been approached by council or individuals concerned directly, rather than using this as an urgent thing. I mean, I would have thought it's more in Dr. Joe McGirr's pathway than ours. Realistically, it's not really I'm sure council can be involved, but I would have thought that it's probably more of an operational thing than having to have an urgent motion in regard to this. There's obviously a lot more background, and there often is with these things, because I know from experience everything's not as it seems, and there's always sides to stories, and who knows what's going on. And I think without speaking to the police in the first instance and getting some understanding of what's going on down there, and then following it up with Dr. McGirr's office, because it is his remit, not ours. It's just probably not the right pathway. But if it's council's mind to do that, then I'm not going to vote against it. But I think there was other options.
Thank you, Councillor Lara. Any further comment? Councillor Ivel?
Yeah, further to Deputy Mayor Thompson's comments, emergency services have been called down there quite often for various reasons. My concern is we've got a brand new facility in that toilet that's there, and the last thing we want to see is any damage occur to that toilet because of inappropriate behaviour and some of the mentality and I've seen it firsthand. And it was quite an expensive piece of infrastructure that was built there. We need to make sure that it's looked after.
Thanks, Councillor Ivel. Any further comments?
Just close to debate.
Councillor Thompson.
This isn't just a matter of urgency because it's an ad hoc thing. This has been an issue that's been ongoing, and the difficulty is that the police have been called on numerous occasions, and quite often they don't have the capability to actually attend at the time. Part of what I'm looking at in the strategy is even the possibility of cameras down in that area to protect our infrastructures and to protect people. It actually would enable the police to work with us. The police came and gave us a presentation not that long ago, and they actually spoke about the possibility of having cameras to help with some of these issues. So the fact of the matter is that we have actually had the police called. As Councillor Ivel has pointed out, other emergency services have also been called down there. And the issue is a whole of community approach. It's not just something for Dr. McGirr or for the police, but we all need to work together to ensure that we achieve an outcome. We've got a facility there that is now becoming overrun, and people are feeling intimidated to go down there, and younger children are feeling particularly threatened and intimidated. So we need to act now, or we're just not going to achieve an outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in
Well, I
favour?
know debate.
Sorry, Councillor.
Debate has been closed, but I think the police are trying to get a trailer with cameras on it, with a boom on it. And I think maybe a motion similar to this might assist them in getting that trailer. So if we could, I know we can't add it to the motion now, but that would be helpful for the police.
Thank you very much for those comments, councillor Hayes. If there's no,
Well, can I just maybe ask that that operationally that Dr. Joe McGurr is informed, because ultimately it's the state member who's responsible for police in the area, and I think it would be remiss of us not to involve his office in that decision process, especially if you're talking about cameras and grants, and because who's going to pay for the cameras and the trailers and the.
well, I don't think,
That's the issue.
councillor Larder, we've reached that point at this point in time. I think the comment is that we liaise with the local constabulary and endeavour to find a way forward to address the issue, and in conjunction with them, if there's a need for it to come back to council, I'm sure it will. Very good. No further discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll now go to, I think I've got it right, 9.1, which is local government destinations and visitor economy conference.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, before the reports move, can I just note that there are no costings for the airfares and accommodation included in the report?
Someone move the report?
Could I comment too?
Yeah, fair enough.
Just I know personally, as one of the people going, that my airfares and accommodation is $879.50, and that has been paid and reimbursed to me.
I don't know what the accommodation for me is, but the flights were $139 each way.
Very good. Thank
Which
you
is
very much
cheaper
for that
than driving.
clarification. Will someone move the recommendation or an alternative? Been moved by councillor Larder, a seconder. Councillor Ivel, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.2. Fees for councillors and mayor, 2023-24 financial year. The recommendation is that determine the annual councillor and mayor's mayoral fees for 2023 financial year. in
I'm happy to move
accordance
this.
with- What are you moving?
I'll move it,
What are we moving?
that we discuss it.
Right, been moved, seconded by moved by councillor Hayes, seconded by councillor Larder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. It's open for discussion. Wish to do it in committee or council?
Yeah, let's move in.
Committee? Move. Councillor Hayes has moved. We go into committee, seconded by councillor Ham. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Hayes, do you wish to open the?
Yeah, look, this
Discussion.
has been something that the country mayors have been pushing for a long time to change the classification of Snowy Valleys Council. Change the classification for some of the councils, particularly the amalgamated ones, and also to try and ensure that councillors are actually paid a realistic fee for their work. Now, this is a very small step, and it's hardly anywhere near what the fees paid to a councillor or a mayor are in Queensland or in Victoria, which are very, our closest states, I suppose. But it's a start. So I think I think if we want to attract, and we're only a year and a bit away from council elections, if we want to attract quality candidates for local government, I think this helps, because certainly it's quite an ask for somebody to give up day's work and to be a councillor, and that's what you have to do. You have to forego work that you might normally be doing, and certainly in my case, I could earn 10 times more being a casual teacher than I can being a councillor or more. So it's a good start, and I'm happy to see it.
So you're going to move the rural large or the
Rural large.
rural large
As per option one.
as per option one? Councillor Larder?
I'd support councillor Hayes in option one, but I don't know whether it's possible under the Act to do this, but whether as an alternate that either option one or two could be mended together to essentially give each councillor the option of either taking the lower or the higher amount, depending on what their individual decision was, and does that pose a problem, or is it a set
That's an
thing? that we have
interesting
to agree?
proposition, Mr. General Manager.
I believe the requirement is for council to determine an appropriate amount. Councillors individually still have the option. Well, usually the way I've seen that apply, where an individual councillor does not want to receive the full amount, they actually receive the full amount, but make a donation to a group of their choice and publicise or feedback where that donation is made to, and that could be back to council or back to a council activity if they wish to do so. Yeah. But that's the way around it.
Any further discussion?
I'll just,
Councillor Thompson?
while I don't disagree with what Councillor Hayes has said, the concern that I have is that as we head into a period where we are later in the council meeting looking at all of our suite of documents for integrated planning and reporting, including our long-term financial plans and our budget and fee charges, I can actually see that this is not going to sit well with a lot of people in the community who genuinely believe that they are struggling financially at the moment. We all know what work we do for this level of payment, and there is also a report later in the council paper that identifies how much individuals get paid, and I think if we worked out our hourly rate, it would be laughable. But I do have a very genuine concern that for members of the community, they are going to see this as us awarding ourselves an increase while we're also asking them to put their pocket or their hand in their pocket, and at a time that they're struggling. So I just needed to make that point.
Mr. Mayor, I don't usually enter debate, but can I make a comment on this?
You can.
Look, councillors, firstly, I have to say that this system, I think, is exceptionally difficult for councillors to have to determine this rate within margins. The truth is, I think councillors perform their role as a community service, and there is some misunderstanding about that in the community. What's being proposed here at the rate that applies for the size of the organisation we are, and let's be honest, this organisation should have been categorised as rural large a long time ago. So effectively, people have been underpaid for a period of time. It's a correction of something that should have been addressed previously. I'd also point out that an amount of $17,000 per annum is a very, very small stipend. It's not a fee, it's not a payment. It's a very small stipend for the amount of time that councillors are required to apply for the role. I know that it's difficult for councillors, and we've had difficulty with the large number of out-of-hour sessions, out of normal scheduled meeting sessions that we have to ask councillors attend, be it sitting on recruiting panels, be it further briefings on things like the amalgamation, a whole raft of others, and people are having to balance that with their working jobs. I'm going to encourage council to take the maximum rate, which is well and truly less than, as I said, it's still a stipend. It's well and truly less than a reasonable payment. And I would also point out that let's be realistic. I can understand community sentiment, but let's be realistic. We're talking about an entire budget for all councillor fees, currently at around $140,000 per annum, with this possibly going to $180,000, $190,000 per year to run an operation with a $60 million budget. At the end of the day, whether or not you take this increase is not going to make a sniff of difference to the overall financial position of the organisation. And I think you'd be doing the right thing by the next lot of candidates to set this up to provide at least as close to a reasonable fee as possible. That's
Thank you.
my recommendation.
Any further comments? Righto. Someone move me go back in. If there's no further comments, someone move me go back into council. Councillor Larder, seconded by Councillor Ham. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Someone prepared to move a motion?
I'll move the motion for the large council.
So that's option one.
And I'll second it.
Option one. And what are you setting within the large council?
The maximum.
Maximum, right. So it's been moved that we take option one, maximum, by Councillor Larder and Councillor Hayes. Any further discussion?
Only
Councillor Livermore?
if I may, yeah, look, I understand, and I know that the sort of hours we put into this, yeah, it's, I don't know that it's even a stipend. It's a token, but however, at the same time, I'm also aware of the other issues we're discussing in this meeting. I mean, this council's virtually running out of money, and it really worries me about the sort of message we're sending to the community. And because a lot of people don't understand. I know often people have spoken to me in casual conversations and thought, oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind being a councillor. It's only one meeting a month, isn't it? So I think a lot of people don't really understand what is involved. However, I'm also very mindful of the financial position we're in at the moment. So, I mean, I'd be happy to support option two, I think, the way that's worded. So, and, you know, what happens in the future, and I understand the issue about trying to attract other people and new councillors and so on, but at the moment we're the council till September 2024, so unless someone resigns or leaves, we're not really in a position where we're trying to attract new councillors at this stage. And that is something that could always be revisited this time next year, when maybe the organisation might be in a slightly better financial position.
Any further discussion?
If I could say something. That's
Councillor Ham?
okay. I just looking at both sides of the argument and things like that, I don't know whether we could just cut it in the middle, you know, so we stage it going up to that large rural stage and pay the 1570, 735, like midway. I'm not sure whether that is midway, but I presume that it's not an option.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the best opportunity is to accept the maximum, and if you're not comfortable with it, you can donate it back to the council.
No other comments?
I'll close up if you like.
Right, Councillor Hayes.
I thank the General Manager for his very eloquent comments, and I agree with him. I think we're just in the process now of preparing for the next council, with looking at special rate variations and all the things that they'll have to deal with. And I think this is one way of maybe attracting people who might be on the cusp. And I think this is only the start. I think that the government will go towards increasing it further. So I think probably the organisation needs to be prepared to pay more. And certainly, you know, I think they're getting pretty good value for money from most of the councillors sitting around the table. So, you know, you've got a lot of experience here, a lot of ability, and a lot of training in some cases. So, you know, you're getting pretty good value for money. And yeah, so you know, I'll be voting in favour of this.
Can I just ask the General Manager a quick question through you, Mr. Mayor?
You can.
Where Snowy Valleys Council is deemed as a large council, large rural council. If a de-amalgamation were to occur, would the two new entities be seen as just rural councils and not large rural?
That's my understanding, and I believe that's written as such in the report.
Thank you.
Very good. No further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Just,
Carried.
can I have a show of hands again?
Who's against, please?
Well, 4 first, please.
Or
Who say no?
against?
Yeah.
Obviously, 4,
Yeah.
5, 4. Declare the
I
motion
I just need
carried.
the name
We need,
called out, please.
hands up 4, please, and just record it.
So who have we got?
Lada, Ivor, Hughes, Hayes, and Ham.
That makes the balance of us again. And look, and you know, I think the point's been made. It's up to the individual. So I know what decision I'll be making. So
Ham, Hughes, Ivor, Loughton.
Hayes.
I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. Righto. 9-3.
Mr. 9-3.
The draft combined delivery program and operational plan, budget fees and charges for public exhibition.
Mr. Mayor, can I move recommendation point 1, which is to receive the report so that we can go into committee just to have a discussion before we adopt
You can.
the document?
Is
So
there a
I-
seconder? Councillor Ham, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, do you wish to move to go into committee, councillor?
I'll move that we
Thompson,
go into committee,
Moved by
please.
councillor Thompson as a seconder. Councillor Ham, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. You wish to start the committee discussion, councillor Thompson?
I do, and it's interesting that this report follows the one that we've just talked about, what councillors do. For the general community who may not be aware, there were like 283 pages of attachments to go with the document, and the majority of all of those related to this report for the integrated planning and reporting. The point that concerns me that I would like to actually have removed is that within the fees and charges, for the fees and charges document, I think it's page 46, and in the report, I think it's page 185. It relates to our cemeteries, and it comes down to the weekend and public holidays. In my opinion, I don't believe that we should be saying that council shutdown is considered to be weekend and public holidays when we are the ones who have imposed that closure. It's standard for general public holidays and weekends, but if it means that if you have somebody who dies within that period, then you get hit with the additional cost because council's in shutdown, and I don't think that's fair to the general community.
Councillor Ham?
Yeah, good point. I'd like to speak to Children's Services in the attachment 1, and it has the net cost of the service making a profit of $703,000, which last year was around 20 to 30,000. I can't remember. It might have been 32,000. And yes, I have asked our finance manager that we might get the finance manager or Director of Community Services to explain that that is not the actual profit at all.
You want me to answer?
Or do you want me to talk to it?
I'm happy to answer it very, very briefly. Just pointing it out, and it does actually say this. Admittedly, it's as a footnote, and not everyone gets to the footnotes or fine print. It's in the introduction to the section that provides cost by service. As we state there, it applies the direct cost. So we apply the direct cost, we show the direct cost for each service. We do that to be more transparent. If we were to do overhead charging and include overhead charging at the service level, we would actually disguise the cost of leadership, the cost of governance, the cost of general administration, because we would have already distributed the cost of that
And the
across
cost of
individual.
vehicles and the cost
Yeah.
for maintaining the land.
Absolutely,
Yes.
the cost of all overheads. So the real profit or loss for child services is significantly less than that figure, because it only includes the direct expenses and not the overheads that would normally be attributable to that service.
Could we ask for that? Because I think it is such a service that people are paying a lot for it. And, you know, people paying up to $99, $100 a day for children's services. They don't want to know that we're sitting there with a huge profit. So if in time, could that be published what it actually is?
In time, it can be. We can provide an indicative amount. We do not have an adopted overhead distribution methodology. We are rebuilding that at the
Sure.
moment. So once that's completed, we can certainly do it.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Any further discussion?
Um,
Councillor Hughes?
What have we got here? Section the street decorations, page 148. There's a huge jump in the costs that you're suggesting for this budget to 137 to 500.
Mm.
Is there some light that can be shined on the reason why that's been increased? Everything else seems to be at a
Sarah, could you just
One
say
for-
change
Attachment
item?
here.
148 on the fees and charges.
Yeah.
We're talking fees and charges.
Yep.
Is that fees and charges?
Street decorations.
Through Mr. Mayor, I can probably
Yeah.
comment on that. So that is the
Erect it,
actual cost to erect the banner, which includes traffic management. So it was quite under previously. So staff looked at the cost of doing that and tried to have it on a cost recovery basis.
Okay. There's a lot of the library fees. Another one is on a lot of the library fees are stagnant.
Correct.
They're all in the type D section, which are these for the public listening. The fees and charges are generally for documenting and minor services provided by the council in most cases. So it's not, I was expecting to find in here, it's an outside forces that we can't change, but is there any explanation why the fees in the library hasn't changed?
Correct, through you, Mr. Mayor. Council's part of the Riverina Regional Library Network, and they actually set the fees for the members in that network. So we don't have any control as such. We have input to those fees during meetings, but it is set
Across the board.
network. Across the board.
You have got sorry, there's another one. There's a couple others.
Yeah.
There's a fee charge for replacement of lost keys. There's a $225 if you lost a key if you're renting or leasing a council buildings, but it's only $81 if you lose the key on an airport. Do you think an airport is more important or less than a hall?
For you, Mr. Mayor, the different keys, the keys for our offices and facilities are generally what we refer to as a cyber key, which has the batteries and is tracked. And essentially that's cost recovery to replace those keys. The key for the aerodrome and similar are more of a standard key.
Thank you. Section, page 192, which is a section about the roads, probably. These, can you explain why these are all particular roads that you're having a development contribution for roads? So each road has a different story about the fees because there's different people on the roads, or what scenario? How come we're talking about individual roads per lots, like Bomadari Road has got a particular
development contribution, which is not the same as Alta Vista and forestry roads per lot.
Sorry, can you?
So page 192.
92.
192 on the fees,
Section 7 double.
on the
A
fees and
road.
charges?
On
Yeah.
the fees and charges. 7.11 roads. Halfway down the page.
Don't have specifics.
Yeah. Maybe having a look.
Yeah, no, I've got it here. That's all right.
You might be
Yeah.
able to answer that, Nick.
Well, now you able to add any light to that? Otherwise, I can say what I expect it is.
Through the chair, the rates are established through council's contributions policy, and they're just annually indexed on an annual basis. Now, the contributions plans are quite old. They relate to the Tumut Shire Council days. Those rates that are established in there are in relation to upgrade works that would be required in order to bring those roads up to standard.
So they're all got a plan to get to the standard, and they're not there yet.
So as development occurs on those roads, those contributions are paid. It gets paid into a restricted fund, and then those roads are upgraded as those funds become available.
So in an ideal world, that would have a per lot universal fee across all roads
No,
for that category, but we just haven't got around to it because
no. Mr. Mayor, if I can respond. No, under the development control plan, it recognises different costs in providing different infrastructure to service different lots, depending on where that lot is. So the development control plan specifically identifies that lots along those roads should make this contribution because that's what it is going to take, or that will be their portion of upgrading the particular road that they're along to a set standard. So it's actually, instead of just averaging it across the council area, it depends on where you're building. So in a large number of cases across the locality, we might have rural roads, gravel roads, where there might be future development, and there's not a development charge that allows the upgrade of that gravel road. But in areas where we've identified a greater level of development could occur, and that we have on our plan a requirement to upgrade that road, maybe to a bitumen standard over time, we try to collect from each development every time it occurs, so we spread it equally and fairly to each of the developments that occur. That goes into reserve to ultimately upgrade that road eventually, and that's all set up in the development control plans.
so there would be some universal figures underneath these numbers.
There's a detailed development control plan, and that lists all the works, it lists the cost estimates, it lists how they're escalated over time.
Yeah.
So the development control plan is effectively an instrument that exists under the planning and environment legislation in our planning framework, and this just picks those fees up and puts them in the fees and charges schedule.
So you'd be confident in saying that if somebody wanted to build, clearly it looks like it's cheaper to build on this road than it is on that road, and you could explain to them how we've come to that number.
Certainly could give them a copy of the development control plan.
Good. I've got one more. Does it make any sense still? Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, councillor.
Can I just ask, there's another one on
Yes.
page 145. There seems to be a little bit of an anomaly when it comes to printing and faxes, CSO. So it's on 145 of the report, or page 6 of the fees and charges. And we've gone from 20 cents to $1 for an A4 black and white copy. And yet you go down further, and an A4 copy in colour is only $1.10. It's gone from $1 to $1.10, but our black and white's gone from 20 cents to $1. So we just.
Can I sit through the chair? Yeah, that implement is that the initial fees and charges didn't include the employee cost who handles the paper and employee time mainly. That's what we worked out with. That's gonna cost us at Shire office if somebody comes and asks us to print the copy of paper. And that's why there is not much difference between the black and white and color, because the main component is employee time.
Do you know it's actually cheaper to get an A3 copy, which is only 65 cents. So this is what I'm saying. When the A3 black and white copy goes from 60 cents to 65 cents, the A4 black and white goes from 20 cents to $1. So
Carry on.
there just appears to be some anomalies in how we've determined the baseline for some of these services.
Yeah, look, I
Yeah,
see what
so,
you're
yeah.
getting at, Councillor Thompson. Like, there are some discrepancy there.
Yeah.
That area particularly would need to be revisited, I believe.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Councillor Ham?
I'm just in the delivery program, just in the prelude, you're talking about, you know, Yavin Creek and the Toomer Road and the Alpine Way. And I'm just wondering, have we been allocated the pothole money that was promised during the election? Has that come through yet?
Glenn?
Through the mayor, we haven't received that funding, assuming it wasn't the regional local road repair program fund. We haven't received any additional funding since the state election, no.
Was that an
But
election promise?
It was, and Wagga has got theirs. So I think it's something we should
Yeah.
talk to the local member about.
Very good. Any other comments? Councillor Larda?
Yeah, look, more just in relation to the lack of ongoing funding and the requirement for the SRV. This is probably more of a comment than anything else, rather than, you know, worrying about the photocopying sort of miscellaneous stuff. But look, I think from a political point of view, we need to be looking at the messaging that we're sending the state and federal governments in relation to cost shifting, because the continuation of cost shifting onto local government from state and federal authorities has been going on for quite some time, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. I mean, the Liberal governments have spent like drunken sailors during this COVID madness, you know, and now we've got the federal government putting $1 billion for further COVID funding. $100 million of that is for encouraging people to have boosters. I mean, we can't even get a pothole filled. I mean, it's just complete madness. We've got 360 odd million just to run the Voice. I mean, who's paying for all this? I mean, like, the reality is we need to be asking questions, and the community rightly should be saying, well, you know, these services that we're now having to commit to and fund at a local level because people desperately need them, because the state and federal governments haven't been giving us the resources, either financial or actual resources to do the job. I mean, you know, and then they're spending all this money on things that, you know, people would look and say, well, do we really need to spend $360 odd million on a referendum at the moment? I mean, it is just completely ridiculous. So, you know, I think people should say to their state and federal governments that you know, local government really does do a wonderful job with the money and resources it receives. But I mean, we can't just keep picking up the can for state and federal governments who are just spending money like drunken sailors. That's really what it amounts to. And potholes should not be an issue. You know, we should be getting FAGs grants and all those things that we used to fix these things, and they're just being taken away.
Any other comments?
Well, we still haven't got our $1 million for the flood relief, I don't believe.
Can you answer that? Jess?
It's the floods were in November when we were told we were getting $1 million, and still haven't arrived.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we haven't received that money yet, and I have made inquiries with the OLG, but they couldn't give a time frame on when we might receive.
So do we know where the money's sitting?
Still at the state government level. It hasn't hit the intermediate sort of body who then provides the funding to the OLG. So it's just
They're still finding out where it is
Mm.
sitting. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these things don't materialise anyway. But
Disappointed they don't.
Hmm.
I appreciate what councillor Larder and councillor Hayes have said, but at the moment, the suite of documents before us are what we as a council need to be looking at and addressing, and those issues are something that need to be addressed outside because we've got a lot before us here today as well. The delivery program, and I think what's really important is that the community needs to understand that this suite of documents will be going out for public exhibition, and we really need to encourage people to go through them and look at them and be aware of it and not just criticise or complain once it's done. But with the delivery program, I noticed that there are a lot of projects. Some of them don't necessarily identify the town that they're going to happen in, but some of them I'm trying to understand where the funding has come from. I know we've got the columns for general funds and then grant funding through the bushfire funding and things like that. But just if maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, we could get the Acting Director of Infrastructure to outline how particular roads or footpaths, because we don't have a program for footpaths or new footpaths. Everything is based on just renewal at the moment. So if we could just explain how the projects identified in the delivery program have actually been identified.
Through the Mayor, so we're based on asset life cycles, we undertake our renewals and assess our renewal needs. This year, we've got a substantial reseal program. I think it's about 1.5 million that we're looking at to undertake a large amount of reseals on our rural and urban roads. And this sort of, this extends the life cycle of the pavements and helps protect them from weather impacts and hopefully prevents failures as well. So yeah, it's trying to maintain that asset renewal profile for the future.
What percentage of those projects are grant funded versus internally funded?
So council receives under the Roads to Repair program, Roads to Recovery program, sorry, federal government, about 870,000 per year, I think is the current agreement, and also receives 210,000 roughly from repair program for regional roads from the state government. And then the rest is essentially general fund.
Well, very good. Thank you for that. Any other comments regarding the IPNR documentation? Councillor Livermore.
No, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, just bearing in mind what we're doing today is adopting these to go on public exhibition prior to final adoption. And there's an awful lot that's already been discussed. There's an awful lot of information in here, which I think we as a group, council group, need to have more time going through between now and the final adoption, so that we can have a more precise input into it. And I do acknowledge there, I know normally you might be doing this sort of a month or so earlier than what we've done it, but I do acknowledge the staff have had a big job trying to put this together based on the information they had to work with. So yeah, look, I think that's the big issue, to get it out there to the public. And I think hopefully the communication program that goes out there the best we can makes the public aware of what's out there and what's involved, because we really do need that feedback from them. The other little technical comment, and IT is not my forte, but given the IT age we live in, is it possible to get a search function put into these documents when they go out? Because it's
Good idea.
It's extremely difficult. You've got to go through a hell of a lot to try and find the bit you're looking for. And I think that would make it a lot easier for the general public, because I mean they're getting this stuff primarily electronically. So
through
Councillor Hughes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand that this is the PDF file, and you can actually search terms and words using it as long as you've got a PDF reader of sorts. There's a bunch of free ones, even the Adobe one's free to read. Yeah, so it's actually, as opposed to a Word document, well, a Word document, you can probably search through it as well. So,
You can.
yeah, it's quite searchable. There's no search bar, but you can F3,
Control it.
Control 3, will find you a search bar and
Control 3.
Control F.
Control F3,
As opposed to chaos.
or just keep smashing the keypad like I do. Often.
Yeah, the secret is you'll have to download the document, so you have. Yeah, sometimes if it's in the.
Yeah, you can't use it on the browser. You can't
It
find
won't
the searches.
work,
Any further comments? Look,
Just,
sorry.
I just want to understand how, when we move back into council and we're going to adopt the programs below, how I make sure that we exclude the council shutdown from public holidays and weekends. How do we word that in the document?
I think that, you know,
Can't we change it after,
After.
when it comes back?
I was just going to say, I think we'd be changing it when we consider
Yeah.
everybody else's
And-
submissions, wouldn't we?
Maybe even put up the price of an A3 sheet of paper at the same time,
Well, like,
Or drop the price
like
of
some
an
of
A4.
those things there, you know,
possibly.
it's not rocket science.
Don't we have
to
a
go through and
paper mill around the
identify where the errors are. Look, you know, look, the crunch is, and from my point of view, there are a number of documents here. We've got the draft fees and charges, you know, which is a bit like St. Paul to the Corinthians. We've got the draft delivery program and operational plan. We've got the draft long-term financial plan, which is pretty revealing. And there's also a draft revenue plan. They're significant documents for the community to read. I'm not sure that everybody will be prepared to devote the amount of time that's necessary. But in essence, it highlights the fact that Snowy Valleys Council is in a fairly dire situation. And I think that it would be pertinent. We'll also be releasing, I think, next Monday, Professor Drew's report into the merge entity of Snowy Valleys Council. I think it would be pertinent if those who do have the time and are prepared to read it in conjunction with Professor Drew's report, because I think it'll have significant relevance between the two of them. It's, from my point of view, we need to be very mindful as a community what the situation is at this point in time. And I think to a large degree, those documents highlight the situation. I think if they're all taken into consideration, it will be sufficient information for the community to make up their own mind one way or the other. But we have this period of time between now and the next council meeting, which is in June, which the council is obliged to adopt the OPNR documentation. So it's important that we have all your submissions back so that they can be collated and considered when the issue comes up for discussion at the next council meeting. Now, having said that, Councillor
Can I
Armour?
ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor? Councillor Brent was talking about we need to spend more time on these documents. How did you envisage that?
Well, I think there's different ways. I mean, we can probably do that individually, making sure ourselves that we've gone through the documents, and then, you know, forward any questions. But however, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed at all to
An hearing.
you know, a full day workshop if need be, but a special workshop day to go through to make sure that we've absolutely got our heads around all the issues and all the implications.
Mr. Mayor, I honestly feel as a newbie that I don't have my head around it. I have read it, but to read it and to understand it are two different things. So I'd be totally for doing something like that and spending some extra time together going through it, because on your own, it just becomes mesmerizing.
Well, there's no reason why the council couldn't have a workshop on the IPNR documentation between now and then, so that we can get a full understanding of what the ramifications are. I think also people need to be mindful that there are two scenarios in the long-term financial documentation for a SRV increase. There's two scenarios there that will have a direct impact on the council going forward, so they need to ensure that they make themselves aware of that. And look, I have no problems with seeing the council have a workshop to discuss this in full detail, because as Councillor Livermore has highlighted, so far it's been up to the individuals to spend the amount of time that they feel prepared to do, and getting a full understanding of some of the ramifications in it is important, so that we can make a well-considered decision come June. Any further discussions?
If I could.
Councillor Ham, sorry, my apologies.
No, that's okay. I was just wondering with the recommendations whether we could actually add a vote of thanks to our staff, who's just worked so hard, and it's been tough. It's been tough sitting in workshops, let alone creating all the documents.
Look, I think their biggest dilemma has been gathering the information together and putting some sense to it. The information's there, but it's not in a
and
easily
I think it's that you've all worked really hard.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I've spent quite some considerable amount of time with the general manager talking about the issues that they've had to confront here, and the amount of time, particularly Patif and Jess have put in, and certainly other members of the staff in getting to the point where we do have these documents in draft form, and get them out there into the community and get their comment will be ideal. All those who've been involved in the process certainly need recognition for the time and dedication they put into it. So I couldn't agree with you more than that, Councillor Ham. Any further discussion? If not, we'll go back into council. Moved, Councillor Ham, seconded by Councillor Lana. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have a recommendation in front of us. Is someone prepared to move, or do they wish to make some amendment?
Can I make an amendment to put in a vote of thanks with that?
Mr. Mayor, just picking up from the discussion, perhaps if the motion, as the recommendation stays the same, but the motion is as per the recommendation with an additional 3, which would be before 4. So before the hold an extraordinary meeting. So the new 3 is that hold a further workshop.
So 3 becomes 4, and you're suggesting 3. Yep.
To hold a further workshop to review the IPNR documentation, and 3 becomes 4, hold the extraordinary meeting, and 5 comes provide a vote of thanks to the staff for the effort in preparing and reviewing the IPNR documentation. So, councillors.
Well done.
You're moving that, Councillor Ham?
I am.
Happy to second that, Councillor Lada. Anybody wish to speak to it? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll now go to, is it
36.
9.4?
Mr. Mayor, I think that we should move to hold this over in light of the fact that we've recently, or there've been recent interviews for a Director of Infrastructure, and I think that this actual report missed the mark of what it was intended to be. So I'd move that we hold this report over until the arrival of a new Director of Infrastructure.
I'm happy to second that.
Moved and seconded.
Councillor Ham.
Councillor Ham. Right, is there any debate on the issue?
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're right.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's clear on what the actual objectives are of it. I think I can see where they're trying to, but I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, we don't know what our director of infrastructure is going to look like, and that's going to be a pivotal part of how this is going. But I see that we need something. We have a huge amount of capital works programs going on at the moment, and yeah, there's been examples where I can see where this is trying to solve those situations.
Councillor Lara?
Well, I would just draw your attention to the 11 concerns, and I think every one of them is valid. And I think this is a complete overreach of the boundaries between what is our role as a councillor and the staff role in an operational decision-making process. And I think if you were to get some advice from the Office of Local Government about this, I think they would probably have some significant concerns about the structure of this proposal. I think it stinks. I don't like it.
Don't like it.
Any other comments anyone wishes to make?
Well,
It's just
Councillor
folded over.
Livermore?
I'll make a comment. I think the potential coming on board of a new director of infrastructure, and hopefully the person we've interviewed, that might be the saving grace for this. In terms of what this was originally setting out to achieve, and I think what it was originally designed for has been totally missed in this report, unfortunately. Now, yeah, I mean, I could provide other comment on that, but at this stage, I won't. But I think in light of what is now hopefully about to take place with the new infrastructure director coming on board, I think this probably becomes a little redundant for the time being. And there may well be an opportunity to, in concert with that new director, to look at some sort of interaction in terms of that oversighting of major projects. I'll leave it at that for today.
Anyone else want to make a comment? If not, I will. Look, one, it missed the point completely. Two, I think the fact that we have been, what would you say, reprimanded for having the temerity to make a suggestion of this nature by way of the report is less than appropriate from my point of view. The whole objective in the concept has been totally missed, and I need to seriously consider my comments here, but as far as I'm concerned, we have missed the boat entirely. I do agree with the fact that the potential of a new director of infrastructure may well make this committee less important than it would have been, because if you look at the projects that this organisation has and the appalling way in which some of them, and I emphasise only some of them, have been managed, certainly needed either a person or a committee within the organisation to endeavour to rectify those situations. But look, I think the simple fact that it's been moved that we not proceed with the report sums it up entirely. Righto, if there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right. I think it's 10-1, is it now?
9-5.
Not
9-5.
9-5.
9-5.
Close.
9-5.
Statement of investments.
Statement of investments. Someone moves a recommendation. Been moved by councillor Ham, seconded by
Yeah.
councillor Livermore. Are there any comments or questions?
Just one, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Livermore?
In the first table there that itemises the investments, I just noticed there's a number of them there that are at relatively low interest rates, and given the upturn in interest rates, now whilst some of those maturing dates, some of those have already expired, and some are due to expire later on. So I'm just wondering, with the ones in particular that have already expired, has there been any attempt to move those investments into a better interest-bearing account? And in some of the ones that are still at low interest that haven't yet matured, is it possible to investigate what the cost would be to pull those out early, if there is in fact a penalty for pulling them out early, compared to what the benefit might be at the higher interest rate? Because some of them you're going from sort of less than 1% to potentially, 4.5%, even higher. So when you're talking about amounts of 1 and 2 millions, that's fairly significant amounts of money.
I'm happy to comment, Mr. Mayor. Where investments mature, council makes their decision, and we try to schedule the maturity of investments such that we've always got reasonable cash flow and some margin. So where they mature, we make the assessment on the amount of cash we have and the amount of cash we need in the forthcoming period, and then reinvest. So when they've matured, we make that decision. When they're reinvested, they add it as a new investment down to the bottom. So you'll see in that table, for example, all the latter ones which now mature out in 24 tend to be at, by and large, are at the at the higher rate. And you can see there with the ones that are maturing in the later period, they're up over 4%, for example.
Well,
so
take the Westpac one, which is the last one on the bottom of the table there, invested in 2021.
Correct.
Right? And still running at 0.78%, right until 2024.
Yeah, and we've just pointed out to Councillor Zoe, and one, I'm surprised that occurred. As you said, it happened back in 2021, and it was obviously for a period of 3 years. But remember, in 21, around that period, we had very low interest rates, and everyone was stretching to take longer terms in order to get a return. So life changes, and with hindsight, we can recognise that. But the reality of it was, back in 21, all organisations, in order to try to attract any return at all on the cash investments, we're stretching the term out.
I get that. I guess my question was mainly in regard to, have we sort of investigated what the penalty would be, if there is a penalty, for early withdrawal for those?
We can do that on an individual basis. As a rule, it is very rare, particularly now, that it is economic to withdraw from a term deposit, if you can do it at all. From that one that was in 21, obviously we're 2 years in, and if you were to break it, if you could break it, you would forego any interest earned at that first 2 years. So
make it back at 4.5%.
You'd make it back.
You may make it back, but again, that's if you can break it. We can certainly look at that, but I'm just pointing out in reality.
That was the point of the question. Have we investigated the possibility of doing that?
There's two issues here. One, don't take the Reserve Bank's advice, right? Secondly, anybody who's been in the borrowing and investing market for a long period of time realises that you can put it in for 5 years and get 0.5% difference, as opposed to putting it in for 12 months. 12 months gives you flexibility. The whole concept of investing money needs to be looked at here. We need the best return we can for the community from the funds that we hold on their behalf, right? And if sitting on a investment of 1.5 million for another, round figures, say 2 years at 0.78%, will incur a penalty of withdrawing our money and reinvesting at 4.5%. Or if you look around for solid investments at 5%, you will find you make your money time and time again, right? Okay, so there's no point in developing it any further. Any other comments, Councillor Lara?
Yeah, well, look, the only comment I'll make is that I think there's also a responsibility beyond the financial responsibility that we have to manage the money appropriately, because I think these banks, like ANZ, that have deserted town, should never get another cent of our money, regardless of what their offers are. And any banks that aren't supporting our local community or any other regional community should be off our list, gone. And we get a lot more back from some of these banks that may not give us as high returns, but they do a lot more community engagement stuff behind the scenes that
In
people
our
aren't aware of.
communities. Yep, couldn't agree with you more. Anyway, right, if no further discussion, I'll put the motion. I assume we moved the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. All right.
10.1.
10.1. Thank you. Madam Deputy Mayor. Australia Day.
26th January.
At the moment.
Someone moves a recommendation, or is there any amendment or an alternative?
I think there's an amendment.
Right. Would you? We'll put up.
Amended motion.
Amended motion.
Someone who's going to move the amendment? Councillor Thompson. Is there a second?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's not to be moved. It's not to move as amendment. I think it's to move as a new motion.
New motion, is it?
Yeah.
Moved as new motion.
We'll just put it on the screen.
Seconded by Councillor. Putting it on the screen first. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson.
Happy to second that.
Councillor Ham seconded it. Any debate?
I'll speak to the
Councillor
motion.
Ham. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson. My
Close.
apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what's really important to note here is that the whole purpose of what's up before us is to encourage every community across the Snowy Valleys to celebrate Australia Day in the way that they want to celebrate it on the day. The idea that each community can then identify who they think are the people that they would like to recognise within their communities for that day is fantastic. Council has put forward that what we would like to do is to host a civic reception for the recipients of each of those events. And to make it easy, I think it identifies the Friday following Australia Day, at which time there is also the opportunity to undertake the citizenship ceremonies and to also for council to look at once we have the award recipients from each of the local communities to look at and to come up with one Snowy Valleys Council Citizen of the Year and also a Junior Citizen of the Year, just recognising the leadership roles. So it's about communities taking ownership and showing their pride and identity for what they'd like to achieve, not necessarily council being the ones who have to undertake it all.
Yes. Any further discussion? Councillor Ham.
Just to support Councillor Thompson's statement there, this year we did have the Australia Day celebration, not on Australia Day, up at Batlow, and it was a dinner, and it was just fantastic. It was something that you would want to win, and this is what we would like, is to really celebrate the people who work hard in our community and that they get duly recognised and within their own communities, but then one outstanding person that we can celebrate. I think it's a great idea.
Councillor Lara.
No, I support it. I just think we probably need to review it. That's all. Just as we would anything else, just to make sure that it is working. I mean, we don't want to see, we don't want it to become by default because council's not doing something that, you know, Australia Day
Falls
sort of
into-
falls into a heap.
Yeah. Look, I couldn't agree more. I think the fact that the communities took on board their own ownership last year was a significant change, and I felt, you know, from my experience of attending the ones I did, I think it certainly highlighted the fact that they felt that they were in control of their own particular awards, which I think was quite beneficial. But you do have a valid point there.
Can I just add an amendment that for council to continue to apply for the Australia Day grant annually?
You would like,
Because without that, well, we have to find the money, which we don't have.
would you like that added?
Yes, please.
Right. Mover, happy with that?
Yes, I am. Doesn't take away from that.
Can I just ask, is that there wouldn't be any change to the Australia Day overall awards committee organisers, you know, like federally appointing a delegate for us, like for the Snowy Valleys region, that'll all still continue?
You mean an ambassador?
Ambassador.
Yeah.
Well, that comes back to us deciding whether we want one.
Yeah. Well, I think we should work that out while we're here. I mean,
I think
We've
that
had so
if,
many workshops.
you know, I hear what you're saying, but I think if the individual committees would like somebody, I assume there's still the offer of an Australia Day ambassador if they want to find someone themselves. And I think, you know, based on discussions I've had, a lot of them feel that there's people within their own community that will fill that role anyway, and that gives them a little bit more ownership of the whole exercise too. But the opportunity, I imagine, is still there for anybody to apply for an Australia Day ambassador. Any further discussion?
it's always interesting to see who they are.
Ivor?
Yeah.
Can individual communities, and I take your point, councillor Ham, can they apply for Australia Day funding as well?
No.
They can't.
Right.
Love the sponge cake.
Well, I mean, just on that then, I mean, I think this probably just needs a little bit more clarification, because if local committees can't organise funding and, you know, there's some doubt as to whether they're going to actually make arrangements for an ambassador, you know, I think that's a big part of the program. It's been, you know, wonderfully rolled out here previously, you know, with some really wonderful ambassadors that have had a connection to our region and offered a great deal. And I think it would be an absolute shame if that was to sort of cave in because of an absence of somebody organising it.
Sorry, I wasn't clear in that the council will apply for that funding to go out to the regions. So no, they definitely need that money. That's why I wanted it in a motion that we continue applying for it.
That's what Kaylee spoke about this
Yeah.
morning. That council will still apply for Australia Day funding to go to the communities.
Yeah.
It's just won't.
And
be-
so we will still apply for the ambassador.
That's it.
Well, not
And,
necessarily.
well, no, if Tell Bingo want the ambassador, they can go to Kaylee, can we have the ambassador? Great, yep, she'll apply for it. And then Tumut might say, I want that ambassador as well. But then
So if
like
somebody
Tumbarumba's quite
identifies
happy.
They would like an ambassador.
Yeah.
We will apply for it. If somebody else within the community, say for instance, getting back to Talbingo, they'd like an ambassador.
Well,
Would Tumbarumba like to use them, or Adelong like, well and good, if not.
I personally think we should automatically apply for it regardless, because you know you're generally bringing somebody to the region that is a pillar of the community, and you know they not only offer something to us, but we may end up with a connection, which we've done previously to build relationships in business and all sorts of other opportunities as a result of those connections. So, I think that would be a failure of us to allow that to slip, because, we're thinking somebody's going to organise it, because I know what will happen, somebody won't.
With all due respect, councillor Lada, is that we've had a number of workshops and briefings and discussed all of this, which is where we've got to for this. And this is all coming in over the top of what's been discussed at length for probably 7 months even before this year's Australia Day. There was significant discussion with the former committees and staffing and
Well, that's why we're at a council meeting.
That's
Councillor
right. Look,
Thompson, you know?
Look, the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong here, there's an easy way around this, that the council has the option of applying for an ambassador if somebody wants one. What you're suggesting is we apply full stop, and then if nobody wants to use him or her,
So
Well, would there be any objection to adding to item 5, continue to apply for Australia Day grant funding and participate in the ambassador program?
Yeah.
So I think that's the intent.
that's, yeah,
We
right,
just capture it.
Yep,
Somebody's got to
fair
look
enough.
after the
So, mover and
ambassador.
second are happy with that?
Yeah, very. Thank you.
You happy?
Sure.
Right, okay.
Always.
If there's no, Councillor Ivor?
Just one comment, and it's probably already been raised on a whole host of different forums. The ambassador we had last year was absolutely fantastic.
Mm. But we love the local connection too.
Absolutely. It was
Yeah.
great.
You know how that came about, councillor Ivor?
No, I don't.
He actually contacted me and asked if council would invite him to be the ambassador because he wanted his last year to be back in his hometown. So
Right.
that's how Bruce Elder came to be our ambassador.
Well, he was, I've seen quite a few ambassadors come through the town, and he's probably been the highlight of
Yeah.
all of them.
No, he was good, that's
Very
for
good.
sure. Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried. 10.2, I think it is.
Yep.
Holy part.
Dolly Parton.
It's an interesting name for a.
I'll move this one.
Ah, I'll be,
You'll be
believe that, would you? Thank you, councillor Ham. Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Councillor Hughes.
Dolly Parton.
I'd be
Any
surprised.
discussion?
I've known 2 people who've got this book when their baby's been born. It's just such a positive,
Way.
yeah, to
Coming into
welcome
the
a
world.
newborn child and whatever we can do to support this, which is, I mean, amazing that we don't have to do much except to say thank you. And we should continue to do it.
Mentioned it
Great.
earlier
you
yesterday.
didn't read the report.
No.
What did the report say?
No, it says no.
Oh, well, then we
I
go
beg your
against it.
pardon, I thought I did.
The recommendation,
He's just
pulling your leg.
well, that's one way of putting it.
Receive the report.
Righto. Any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Against, carried. We'll now go to 10.3. Draft library strategic plan.
Till July 24.
Unanimous?
Is there a
Maybe I better
mover?
go back.
Councillors, Mr Mayor.
Receive the
Sorry, was that last motion unanimous or were? votes
good.
against?
Yeah,
Is it planning?
The vote's been held. We're just clarifying whether it's, anyone
unanimous.
voted against. Is it unanimous?
Yes, Lamb.
I'm all right.
I think
I'd like
everybody
to
voted.
revisit
As
this
far as I'm
sometime.
concerned, it's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr.
Somebody
Mayor.
moves
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
alternatively for account, it's unanimous, right? Okay, 10.3.
What's this? Very clever writing.
Draft library strategic plan. Anybody got any comments on it? If not, will you move, councillor Ham?
Happy to move, and then I have one comment.
Second, is there a seconder? Councillor Ivel, councillor Ham move, councillor Ivel second, councillor Ham.
I just noted, thank you to whoever did the work on this, but I noted that our uptake in the Snorri Valleys Council is at 25%. The New South Wales average is 49% of people are engaged with libraries. So as in a KPI or something like that, if we could put it out there, that we would really like that to lift the library usage.
Does the Riverina Library have a mechanism or a?
I don't know. Well, I'm on that
strategy to
committee, so
increase
I'm
library participation?
taking that on board as well.
Very front.
Councillor Ivel.
A question for councillor Ham. Have you noticed a decrease in library usage because of electronic media?
But that's included within it, because you still have to become a member to be able to use their electronic resources. But you're just saying people don't have more
read books anymore
resources,
because
they have it on their phone.
Yeah.
Maybe, but why is the average still at 49%? What are we missing
don't
there?
know.
So I
Is
think
there
we
any-
take that on board.
Is there any way of breaking that down? Is there particular libraries that are doing
Better than
their share?
I don't know.
Can I sorry, councillors, I'll just point out that one of the challenges that you have is in large metro centres, and they drive those statistics a fair bit. Libraries are a place to go as well when you're in a high density environment with small units and flats, and they're usually walking distance. I mean, in a rural area where you've got larger homes and further to go to the library. So our libraries are used to access books. In other places, libraries are used for a place to carry out and do your study and meet other people.
Good point.
I agree with that too.
It might be good to find out a breakdown from royalty.
Well, how's it represented across Riverina?
I think too,
Councillor Ryder?
as in places like Battler, where you've got a large seasonal contingent of itinerant workers, we've often been told by staff and users that those people go into the libraries to get connectivity because they may not have Wi-Fi and those resources. Similar sort of situation with Tumbarumpa Pool. I remember complaints about the use of the hot water service when showers.
Most definitely. Yeah.
You're saying there's connectivity.
Mr. Mayor.
Wi-Fi in the
We're
shower.
going so well.
Couldn't help itself.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question, please?
Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, I have a concern in relation to the library strategic plan, and I note that there was one person who submitted something after public exhibition, but we're not quite sure what the issue of concern that was raised. The concern that I have is that this strategic plan still includes that Batlow has a library at the school that is accessible.
Talbingo.
Talbingo, where did I say?
Batlow.
Oh, yeah, that one. I'm looking at you, councillor Hugh.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the library's still there. At
Yeah, the library's still in Battler. So in Talbingo, this strategic plan still identifies that there is a library facility at Talbingo, where it's located, the fact that it's used 1 day a week, and the staffing. But what it doesn't actually indicate, apart from the fact that that facility is no longer there, it does not indicate how the library service is being delivered to Talbingo. And in actual fact, I think the community is still unaware of how it's supposed to be functioning. So for me, it seems a little bit of an anomaly to adopt the draft when there's a section of our community that's unaware of what's actually going on, and they're still being included when they're not.
Is there anyone want to answer that question?
Because this was authored quite a long time ago.
It still includes the former CEO.
Yeah, I'd point out, one, the document was authored quite a while ago. It was put out on public exhibition last year and has been slow coming back to council as a result of some staff turnover. The strategy does make reference to continual reviews, and the change at the Talbingo Library that council has adopted has been on a pilot process. So it is consistent with the strategy as far as the strategy identifying the reviews, and the council staff were reluctant to remove the Talbingo Library from the strategy, given at this stage it's a pilot approach to what we're doing. So that's the background to it, but it's up to council.
So have we received a definitive process of how the Talbingo service is being delivered? Is it being delivered through community transport? Are people being charged for the community transport? Are they using community transport to come into town, or is it just for the delivery books? Because I'm unaware that we've received any outline of how the service is being delivered.
Yes,
Through you, General Manager. Council has been in contact with the relevant members, and we're actually outlining various ways that they can access that service. So community transport might suit one patron in particular, whereas others would prefer to ring up and order their books, and we can bring those to those members as well. So it's on a case-by-case basis, but we have been in contact and engaging with all members on their preferred method of service at this
Because
stage.
they've had no service for 5 months. It hasn't been operating from the school since January.
Correct, but we have been engaging with them since January, since it has.
So how many participants participate or residents of Talbingo participate in the library?
We have written to everyone on the membership list, but there's about 10 active users that we have been engaging one-on-one with in.
And are they satisfied with the service they're getting delivered?
At this stage, there's no trouble accessing books. I think the areas of concern is around that lifestyle change, where they like going to the library, looking at the books,
Doing a bit of a browse.
doing a bit of a browse. So in terms of accessing the books and the resources, there's been no issue. I guess it's just that lifestyle change that people are sort of getting used to.
And accessing it to pay bills and do, it was a kiosk, a council kiosk as well, which they no longer have there.
Correct.
Yeah.
When we have been speaking with them, we have online services. They can pay that via the phone. We have been offering other ways of doing
Well,
that
how
within
about
the
we
kiosk.
engage with them and find out how they're
Anyway,
responding? to
that was
the
my
change,
concern with
right?
the plan.
Yes, that's
I think
what we've
that might
also
be
said
good.
is we will be doing survey halfway through the trial and then at the conclusion as well. So yeah, because I wanted to see how it was going, any areas for improvement, and then how.
Councillor Larda?
Although it probably wasn't in the submissions, I did note too that Councillor Hayes and I did receive some criticism about libraries in the local newspaper this week from a former employee, pointing out the fact that we seem to be unaware that libraries were exempt under the Act from being charged. Just in response to that, I'd like to say I'm pretty aware of that, because it's pretty obvious to say that if we're going to charge $1 for a piece of paper, we'd probably be charging more for the library if it wasn't protected.
How many pieces of paper in the book?
That's right.
Look, I think, that one of the biggest problems we deal with in any situation is misinformation. And not only that, some people just don't want to know. So, but I do think it's pertinent we review the process so far in the Talbingo Library situation. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Righto, we'll deal with 10.4, which is development application, residential alteration and additions in lot 32, DP 1120073. There's a recommendation there. Is there a mover? Councillor Armour, seconder?
Yeah,
Councillor Livermore. Discussion, debate? Anybody wish to speak to it?
Well, I guess I can.
Councillor Armour?
This is the third time this particular application is before us. It's been a long and lengthy time. And personally, I've found it difficult to come to terms what all of it means, because there's so much information there. But in actual fact, I think I've got it right, and I'm sure Mr. Wilton will tell me if I haven't got it right, that this application is based on, hang on, it's an application for an addition to a dwelling on lot 32. It doesn't really have anything to do with lot 33 as much as the holiday cabins, all the rest of it. Lot 32 is a RU1 agricultural land with dual dwelling. And on that basis, that makes it pretty simple. So I think we've been very confused with all the other lot 33 DAs and all sorts of other stuff that really, I think in the long run, didn't come into it at all. So we are merely talking about lot 32, DP 11200073, 3.9 hectares upon which, in farming terms, is your home block. And the way I see it is that remains, that's probably could be a superannuation investment as distinct from the business that runs alongside. The business alongside on section 33 is the holiday camps and the cottages, which have got 4 cottages on and actually has the right to have 10, but apparently that would appear to be totally unsustainable for the ecotourism that a gentleman's trying to run on that. And the home farm is either the place where he would retire or they would retire, and or it'd be a superannuation if they weren't going to retire there and they could sell the business. So they're totally two separate things. And I think it now looks that way on the paperwork, and therefore I don't see any way that we can really not go along with it, because it complies with everything that is required.
That's the recommendation.
Yes.
Agreed. Right, any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I go to
That is
item
a
11.
planning matter. Okay. Isn't it?
Oh, it's
Planning.
planning matter. We need to show hands. All those in favour? Are you in favour, councillor Howard?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, unanimous, right? Okay, 11 minutes of the committee meeting. Disability inclusion, some recommendation there as a mover.
I'll move the,
Councillor Thompson, is there a seconder? Councillor Ivel, I'll put the motion. Any debate, any questions?
just to note, 2.8, the new date, which will probably end up being our extraordinary meeting day, but that's okay.
You can't win.
It's all good.
Righto, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll now go to the confidential part of the council meeting. No further discussion on anything in open bid council? Righto. We need to move the appropriate motion.
Well,
I think we've got someone in the gallery.
I'll do it.
You have to move the motion first.
Do we?
You have to move
Yeah.
the motion to go into closed session first.
Yeah,
and then
we've got,
close the
we've got
meeting.
council meeting.
No, not yet.
Not yet, not till he's.
But you said.
So someone move that we go into closed session? Councillor Ivan, seconded by Councillor Livermore.